You got to start paying your guys. You got to stop this nickel and dime stuff, and you got to start charging appropriately. We are an industry that has been subsidizing auto repair for our clients for years, and we've been doing it on the backs of our vendors and our technicians, and it's time for it to stop.
Hey everybody, David here, and welcome to the ASOG podcast. In this episode, we welcome back Jeff Compton, who joined us for episode 33. He felt that he left a lot of topics on the table in his last episode, and so we try to hash out a few more things in this one. We're also joined by industry coach Rick White of 180 Biz. Rick was on our very first episode of the podcast and has been featured on several Ask Me Anything YouTube videos, which you can check out on our YouTube channel. And also, just a short caveat on this episode, before you send me any angry emails, just know I personally was not talking about any one person specifically. So, if you have any complaints, send them to Lucas directly. But before we begin, please take a moment to hit that like button if you're on YouTube. It's quick and it helps out a ton. It really does. If you like our content, consider subscribing to the channel. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast listening app, make sure that you're set to automatically download the latest episode so you never miss an upload. And now, here we go.
I lost track of time.
Oh, you're good, buddy.
Yeah,
You're good.
I appreciate the patience, though.
So, Jeff,
I expect to be compensated for my time. This is like flat rate.
David, I'll send you something from Canada if you give me your address, and I'll send you. Whether
I'm gonna get a rotten fish. I caught this last week.
No, I
caught this last week. It's fresh from Canada. Enjoy.
It could be. I'll say this: it could be real beer versus the stuff you may choose to drink there. It'll be real maple leaf. Yeah, it'll be real maple syrup, not that.
Ooh, you should send me maple syrup.
Yeah, not the stuff you get in Vermont. That's just like. That's the stuff that nobody would eat in Quebec, and we sold it to them.
Really? You're throwing shade
at
Vermont.
I'm a proud Canadian. Like, there's, so, it's just been, there's a lot happening around here at the moment, so.
No worries at all. So, Jeff, here's the deal. We had you on for an episode.
Yeah.
And you talked about a lot of things, and we talked about the fact later that you felt like there were some things that you didn't feel like you said that you wanted to say. And we talked about some of those things. And as everybody that listened to that episode knows, we didn't talk about those things.
That was the problem.
Well, but you've played a big part in my thought process about how we treat technicians, right?
Yeah.
And then you've also got Rick over here who also played a big part in how I treat technicians and my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, how cool would it be to bring everybody together?
Yeah.
Right. And let you share some of those thoughts you have with Rick, who has listened to your episode, and I think he's got some thoughts. So if you've got your list, why don't you mention the first thing on your list?
So what we kind of touched on last time, but we didn't really, open it all up, was the idea of the culture of mentorship, and how I think, and again, David, I'm not trying to, say that everything needs to be regulated, but just the difference of, up here where we have such an established apprenticeship program, and then it becomes an actual recognized tradesperson, journey person class, Red Seal, whatever you want to call it, what we call it in Canada. So there's a definite curriculum that has to, it's not just I'm level whatever on ASE, right? It's just something that, at least in every province except for Quebec in Canada, you have to be certified, pass a provincial exam to say that I can, competent enough to perform some repairs on cars, trucks, buses. It's very varied. And I think that from the industry standpoint, I think that has long been missing and needs to be done, and should have been done across the industry. And I'm speaking above ASE, right? Because I've never taken any ASE course. I've never taken one of their tests. I couldn't tell you, but I remember writing our tests up here. And from what I've talked to people that have seen both, we are pretty much, when we write the trade exam, as we call it in Canada, we are ASE certified, level 3, as from what I'm told, across the board. So in fuel and electronics, suspension, steering, brakes, air conditioning, you name it, right? So does that mean that that's all the training that needs to be done? No, certainly not. But I think that we, how do I say that? I don't think that necessarily makes us better, but I can see how some of the ailments that plague the industry in terms of inconsistency from facility to facility, we tend to avoid some of that because people know that at least when I go there, the guy that is at least owns the shop or is in charge has to have this certification done. Now, that doesn't stop anybody that wants to open a repair facility from opening one. But, the government will get involved if you're doing repairs without the proper license. They will do it up here. Now, there's loopholes and there's obviously workarounds. But the apprenticeship program up here, I think, should be adopted across the industry. No question about it. I think that that's the only chance that we have of mentoring the next generation of tech is by having some kind of set standards that says we cannot call him or her a technician until they have completed this level of training and shown this level of competency in the bay. Till then, you're just what we call an apprentice. You're not a tradesperson. And that's, I hear lots of people all the time go, "Oh, in Canada, you guys have got it figured out." No, we don't. It's far from perfect. Far from perfect. And what needs to be done is even more industry involvement in the curriculums of what's being taught to these kids. Because I'll tell you right now, we've seen countless kids come in and go that get out of that have passed the tests, completed the third intake that we call it in schooling, and they're still not ready for the shop floor. Go ahead.
So, Rick, what do you say to that? How do we counter that? Because David is super opposed to any type of regulation, if you will.
Yes.
How do we, Rick? Where's the middle ground?
Well, personally, I'm not sure there is. I think the middle ground, if there is one, is first of all understanding where we're at as an industry, at least in this country. And the reality is every shop is looking for a unicorn right now. They're looking for that diagnostic technician that can do everything. And the reality is that there are so few of them in our country. The average technician age is running about 50, 52 right now. The intake rate, we're losing, I think it's 4 techs for every one that's coming in right now.
We're worse than that up here. We're worse than that.
Yeah. And it's an issue. And part of the problem is I don't know if you guys have ever heard this, everybody, somebody, anybody, nobody. And it starts off, there was an important job to be done and everybody was sure that somebody would do
Yes.
it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought anybody could do it, but nobody realized that everybody wouldn't do it. It ended up that everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done.
Yeah.
Right? And the reality is we have a real issue. And I had a client call me today. One of his techs has been with him almost a year. Former employer reached out to him, offered him $5 more an hour and a $5,000 signing bonus to come work for him.
Wow.
And he's basically saying, how do I combat that? So we sat down, we came up with a plan, and he says, what do I got to do? And I said, you got to start paying your guys. You got to stop paying. You got to stop this nickel and dime stuff, and you got to start charging appropriately. You got to start you know, we are an industry that has been subsidizing auto repair for our clients for years, and we've been doing it on the backs of our vendors and our technicians, and it's time for it to stop.
I'm amazed that anybody still has to ask that question, Rick, honestly,
It
as to
ab-
why, what do I need to do to keep the person? Like, I mean, and I'm labeled as somebody that's a little bit jaded, and I'm cool with that. I'm okay. Um, because like, yes, I want to go to work every day and, I like the challenge. I mean, I really enjoy the tech and the challenge of taking something that doesn't work and repairing it, but God, man, just pay the people what they're friggin' worth. Enough with the excuses on why you can't. Like we're all done hearing it. We're all done hearing it. That's kind of what the last podcast ended at. We're not hearing it anymore. We as a collective, we're done. It's not not my circus, not my monkey. Man, like if you can't get
no,
the cars fixed because you can't, good people. There are good people out there, but man, you got
absolutely.
to poach them from someone else, or you got to show them something that they're not getting. And when you say your scenario to me today, immediately what popped in my head as I'm listening is, well, the number's got to be $6 more an hour and $6,000 to stay. It's as simple
No,
as that.
what I said is, here's what you've got to do. I said, I want you to go up $10 an hour.
On the
I
door
said,
rate.
on the door rate. And this guy gets paid hourly. He's not getting paid by the job. So it's $10 more an hour. Okay. And we're going to set some performance bonuses up above and beyond that so that as the guy works harder, he can make more. And do you cover health insurance right now? No. We're going to sit down and figure out how you're going to do health insurance for the guy too, because that's a big deal. So, we're playing with it a little different, but the reality is everybody's poaching, and that's okay, but we think money's the only answer, and it's not. And the problem with our industry, and I don't know about up in Canada, but the problem in our industry is the only feedback we ever get positive is a paycheck. And the only way we can measure value is when we get paid more. Now, I'm all for it, and Lucas will confirm this for me. I am a firm believer that technicians should be making $100,000 to $150,000 a year.
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, and they should absolutely be doing it. Now they have to
Relative
work
to
to get
the
it.
area that they live in.
What's that?
$100,000 a year in Alabama, like rural Alabama.
I have a client down in Jackson, Mississippi. His technician last year made $104,000.
Okay, but like I'm talking like on the sticks of Mississippi.
So
They trust me.
So
Go ahead.
can I go back to Rick when you said your statement here, and this is what I'm trying to wrap my head around and not like blow my top over, is when you said to them, well, let's put some production and performance bonuses in and get your tech working a little harder. I got to ask. So before he went and gave his notice or talked about the other offer, was the tech meeting all the demands that were expected of him? Was he like
That
he,
he was
I mean,
he was on the lower end. He was good, but and understand, and I need you to understand Jeff straight up, because it's funny. They put Jeff versus Rick here, and I said, I listened to Jeff's thing, and I got to tell you, I'm more on Jeff's side than you guys
yeah,
think.
I don't think we're all so far apart, but it's
No, but here's the thing. The issue is I don't want him to work harder. I want to get it so that if he wants to work and make more, he has that ability to do it. Right?
sure.
And that I think everybody in a shop should be on a performance basis, not a full performance basis. And I want to make sure that that's understood. I don't believe in flat rate. I think that's a antiquated way of running a business, because the owners didn't know how to manage people and they let the pay system do it for them.
Yeah.
So I'm not into, flat rate, but I absolutely believe that everybody, including the bookkeeper, should have some kind of performance bonus in their compensation package, so that they have some skin in the game and that there's something that they can do more of. I think that's important, because human nature, when we're paid hourly and salary, it's unusual to see somebody push hard when they can make the same money and not push hard. And I don't mean push hard like work yourself to the bone. I'm saying
No, but
get
you mean do the extra
produce.
Do the actual
to
oh,
to go to produce.
there's that stupid
right?
there's that word I don't like, Lucas.
Okay, I'm sorry, but ultimately we're here to produce. The shop is a factory, and it's there to produce build hours.
Sure it is. But if I was to come to you and say, "Hey Rick, I got to sit down with you for a minute," and say, and I'm coming to you, employee to boss, everything's good up till now, but I have this other offer on the table of $5 more an hour plus $5, and you sit down and your counter offer to me is not necessarily, a few bucks more an hour, but some kind of production bonus. That I'll tell you right now, and I'll speak for more than myself in the industry. You just lost us in the sense
Oh,
that
absolutely,
right. So
absolutely. That's why I said you got to go up $10.
yeah,
You got to go up $10 an hour, and we're going to add some more money in there if he wants it.
he does want it. That's why he's there, right? He wouldn't be fielding other offers or looking at other places of employment, because let's remember, we don't quit jobs just for money, right? There's lots of
hell
other
no.
reasons we quit. But when you come to me and, or I come to you and say, "Hey, like, I got this other offer," and you may not know that other shop. He could be like, that could be, gravy train with biscuit wheels over there. Like, he may not even have to, it may be tooled up better. It may not work a Saturday, right? It may come in and you work, instead of working rotating shifts, you're now off every day at 3 versus every day at 5. You get to pick the kids up. I can give you 100 different variables. So, but when you turn to me and you dangle this carrot at me going, "Okay, well, let me give you this. Let's talk skin for skin." Like, you've got a $5 an hour offer. That's what you have to work with. It doesn't have to, you don't have to give them necessarily 5. But from my standpoint as a tech, and I'm not an owner, not a shop owner, I'm not a manager. Let's talk turkey right now. That's where we're at. You have to, yes, put your door rate up. You know what, I'm not an owner, but I'll tell you right now, I think the easy answer for a lot of shop problems is put your door rate up. Put your door rate up, because it's mostly about money, right? Either we lost on this job, or this piece of equipment just set us back, or this subscription to this energy. Put your door rate up. If you've got that kind of, and I listened to David and Lucas talk with so many different people last week, and they all said the same thing. When you have that right clientele, price isn't the be all and the breaking factor, right? It's the trust, it's the relationship, it's the culture you've developed. But when you're talking with the tech and you're the owner, he's or she is your employee. Let's not get it twisted. This new generation, it's about the money. I mean, I like what I do. I want to go to work and work with people that I enjoy being around because I'm with them more than my family. But like, don't dangle a carrot at me for talk about production and performance bonuses when I'm coming to you with another offer that somebody wants me bad. Don't.
Yeah, but Jeff,
you can do it.
Listen, man, you got to hear what I said first, right? The first thing I said is, this is a guy that's getting paid hourly. He's getting paid $20 an hour. He gets a $25 offer. I said, go to 30 an hour.
Yeah, he's still underpaid.
That's what we did first. We're going to $30 an hour. Okay. And we're going to add some bonuses on the other end of it.
Yeah, but just so you know, Rick, I would go to that technician because I just offered him a ton of money and a sign-on bonus or whatever the hell that is. I offered him and I said, now they're going to counter you with some ridiculous offer. But just remember, they should have been paying you that from day one.
Amen. They should have been paying
undervaluing you, meaning that they are going to slight you some other way. I'm just going to plant that seed in him.
I never got
so he
offered.
doesn't call me.
I never got offered. I never even got offered close to the money that I was worth till I was giving my notice to when I was leaving.
And that's a shame, because
it is a shame.
Here's the thing. One of the things that I see shops doing, and I've been talking to them about a lot now, is don't give incremental raises, give replacement raises. And they go, what do you mean? I go, okay, you got a guy you're paying $16 an hour to. I'm just pulling numbers out of the air.
Yeah.
And, he goes and gets a job somewhere else, and now you're gonna need to replace him, and you're gonna be paying $25 an hour. Yeah. Just give the $16 an hour guy $25 an hour. He's gonna be happy as a pig in crap, and you're gonna keep him.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to get it so they're not poachable. And you're going to do that in 4 areas. I call it CBCR. The first area is compensation. The second area is benefits. Third area is conditions. and the last is reputation. That's where you've got to learn to attract and retain people in those 4 areas. And you've got to have a well-rounded strategy that's going to do that. And you've got to be able to have the cojones to charge appropriately, because one of the issues we have is we're not charging enough per hour. And the second is we're not charging enough hours so that we are allowing the tech to do the job that they're supposed to do.
Yep, true.
So that's why I said, Jeff, I think we're a lot closer than you think. I am an advocate. We need to do different. We need to do better. The days of running a shop like 1970 is so outdated. It doesn't work. We've got to be able to take care of our people. I wouldn't ask them to do anything that I wasn't willing to do. And here's the thing. As the owner of the shop, I will do some stuff, and maybe I'll do that on my dime, but I would never, ever ask anybody. Like if I went out and I said, hey, we're going to change the headlight out in that car. Jeff's a great client. Go change his headlight. And I give you a pat on the back. You don't walk out of my shop with a pat in the back. You get an invoice. And the invoice shows you the headlight so I can relieve inventory, because that's the problem with the cash sales. Those guys were pocketing the cash.
Sure they are. Of course.
Okay?
Yep.
But here's the thing. I would have an invoice. It would have the headlight on it, and it would have the time to pay the tech to do it. Right? It would give him credit for that time, because I'm giving something away doesn't mean he should.
And that's been too many problems, Rick, with those P words that I hate to be even used. I wish you'd all, like, if you want to replace it, like I said in the last podcast, replace it with proficiency, because it's been too many times when you say, well, the tech has to produce this, the tech has to produce that. And, and I've worked both ways. I've worked flat rate where it's like, once you hit this hour, you roll up the next $2 an hour. Do you know how many hard it was to get that last hour? And do you think that it was just by luck? It wasn't. They're watching what you do every day in some places, and they're going, I don't want that bugger to get 50, because then he rolls up to 26 an hour. I'm going to keep him right at 49. So
Homie, I hate to tell you, but running a shop is too damn hard to even think about watching like that. Your owners, I suppose they're.
But Lucas, you got to remember, bigger operations.
Yeah,
they have people just to do that.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Jeff. Honestly, I think we're talking. If we're going to compare what I'm going to call affectionately and professionally scumbags,
right?
Then we got a problem, because we're never going to be able to get them. I mean, the best thing we got to do when we realize we're working for a scumbag is leave.
Mm-hmm.
And, I went to work. You got to understand, Jeff, my dad had a shop, so I grew up in the industry. I was taking carburetors apart when I was 7. I was rebuilding transmissions at 17. And I've been on both sides.
Right.
So I know what it's like. I don't think technicians should have to supply their own tools today. I think the shop should be supplying them.
See, I like that answer. And that's another thing that I had in my notes that I've been kind of getting from people since I've been fielding these questions.
You guys are both on crack.
Well, no, but think about it, right? Lucas and I kind of talked about this last week.
You want me to buy your ratchets?
No.
Your ratchets?
No.
Yes. Here's the thing, David. Yes. And here's why. Because in this country in 2016 or 2017, they can't even deduct them anymore.
I still can.
They can't deduct their tools from their taxes.
So up here, up in Canada, as an apprentice, you can. As a tradesperson in an automotive sector trade, you're supposed to be able to, but good luck actually getting the money. And I don't know why. There's all kinds of conspiracy theories about that, but I can show you guys a hang drywall that buy themselves 3 new screw guns and a couple tape measures a year and get all that paid back. And I can show you a text that, you're supposed to be able to claim X amount of dollars every year, and you claim it, you get the money, and then they want the money sent back 6 months later because of some filing nonsense.
So do you just roll that in as as part of your benefits? Would you call that CBCR, right?
CBCR, yeah.
Yeah. So does that become part of the B? Is part of
or maybe it's because condition.
What's that?
Maybe it's the conditions. In other words, hey, you're not going to have to worry about tools. Bring your toolbox home. I've got a toolbox here that's better equipped than yours, I guarantee you. And
yeah, but some of these guys want to buy, the argument from my technicians has been, I want to have my own tools. In other words, I want the flexibility. I get it. They're not trying to leave, I don't think, but whatever. Like, I get it. If I were a technician, I'd want my own stuff. I don't want you buying my stuff. I want my stuff. But at the same time, I understand I can't deduct the $10,000 a year I'm going to drop in tools. That's a problem.
It is.
But I, as the shop owner, can absolutely deduct that $10,000. Absolutely. I probably need it. And so, but now it needs to be a different conversation. I'm thinking out loud at this point here because I need to implement something like that in my shop. Now, so this is what we do now. Just so you know, I want my guys to have their own like scan tools, right? I bought the last thing I just bought is a Autel 919. I bought it for one of my techs who was wanting that or the Ultra, back and forth, this, that, and the other. I bought him the scan tool, but here's the conditions, right? The conditions is if I fire you or you quit, you have to pay most of it back, and every month you essentially get a chunk of it like written off.
Right.
What's the word? Why can't I think of the word?
It's an incentive.
No, there's a word for it. Why can't I think of the word? Oh, that's gonna bother me. He owns a 12th of the scan tool every month that goes by. Right. So over the next year, that scan tool is mine. But a 12th of it is his after the first month, and then 2/12 and then the 3/12. Now, if I fire him, he has a choice of either paying the scan tool off. I essentially become the tool truck guy. He can pay the scan tool off and keep it, or he has to turn it in. Like, it's mine. And so it's his choice. The incentive is you don't quit and don't do anything that would cause me to want to fire you. That's the incentive. In the meantime, the guy gets to have the scan tool. I get the benefits of him using and learning the scan tool.
Sure.
And the scan tool will eventually be his to keep.
So he'll have paid off full market value of it by the time it's worth 50%.
He doesn't make any payments. This is just time.
Right.
He's not paying me for it. I'm writing the sucker off. It's entirely my write-off. It's my scan tool.
Which you would get
until he's.
Yeah, which you would get that write-off regardless.
I would get I'm getting the write-off. Yeah. I'm getting the write-off.
Yeah.
I paid cash for the thing.
So
I'm getting the write-off.
And he has to decide he's going to work for David Roman for the next year.
For the next 12 months, yeah. And then, maybe in 3 or 4 months, it becomes some other purchase. Yeah. But then I'm tying the guy to my shop. Like, he's not leaving.
So the only thing
something else he needs to buy.
The only thing similar.
But why do we have to tie him to the shop like that?
Well, because you just invested in a tool for him, and now you want to keep them. Just like it's like when we send these poor buggers to training, we don't want to train them because they might go to the competition, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the worst part is, Jeff, they don't get training and they stay.
I know. I've heard that line too, right?
Yeah, but I've heard that line too. But the guys are banging out suspension work, and so what does a shop owner care? Like, I don't want them to learn ADOS.
Yeah.
And so what am I going to send him to ADOS class for? The guy's banging out brakes and suspension. The guy wants to learn ADOS. The guy wants to learn it, but the shop owner doesn't see any value in it. And if I do spend $1,000 or whatever to send him to ADOS class, well, what's David Friend's class cost, Lucas? Do you remember? It's like $2,000 or $3,000. Yeah, and the guy walks away with tools, but I'm saying it's a sizable investment.
Sure.
And they have to travel to wherever it is, the class in North Carolina. So you're sending this guy, he's going to be out of your shop, and you got to pony up the cash or whatever. And then the guy a month later bails. And so in the meantime, you could just stay here. I'm paying him $20 an hour or whatever. And he's banging out suspension and brake jobs. Like, why am I going to pony up the cash? Now, however, if we come up with a plan and say, yeah, you can absolutely keep that Jade box. You can absolutely, and I will buy you this other piece of equipment too. But over the next 12 months, you're going to earn that back, and it'll be yours. In 12 months, it'll be your free and clear. Now you were like, well, yeah, I want you to learn the class. or the equipment. I want you to learn how to use that scan tool I just bought you, that lab scope I just bought you, that $6,000 lab scope. I want you to use it. I want you to use it to become better at doing your job in my shop and diag cars more quickly and efficiently. So I'm going to dump the extra $600 or $1,000 or whatever into the technician in training. That makes sense in my head.
But see, I understand the angle. that's going on here, and that's like, so you entice them with tools and training, tools that they get to keep, tools that are, essentially they're in their now personal possession. But if they're still an employee of yours, right, it's still for your utilization, for your benefit. You have to realize that there are some techs out there that, like, I don't want to, invest in extra tooling. Like, you can entice me with, oh, that's like, that tool, it has no enticement for me, right? If you really want to knock my knickers up, like, send me some extra money or show me something at the end of the year. Like, here's a $500, gift card every 3 months for Bass Pro Shops, right? Like, that's, you got to remember, like, some of us, we don't just eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff anymore. We might
Absolutely.
have, but it's so I understand, David, and
I wouldn't hire a non-tool junkie. You kidding me?
it's a commendable thing that you're doing. I'm not
I'm just
disputing
telling
that.
you wouldn't come work for me. Like, oh, fishing equipment. It's like, okay, great. Enjoy your fishing equipment. I'm going to go geek out on these lab scopes.
It took me 25 years to be able to, when I walked out of there at 5:00, shut it off and find another passion that actually made me smile more. And people that have known me and know me a long time know that I have, if there's one thing I have for this industry, it's passion. But I've always been, since people have started to know me in it, know that I'm jaded for a lot of different reasons. So it doesn't blow my skirt up anymore to say, here's a new scan tool, here's a new scope. Like, all that is good for getting the job done. But let's cut the shit here. It's your job, right? It's your job.
Here's the thing, Jeff, if I can jump in for a second,
Sure.
It's like buying your wife a washer for your anniversary.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm not married.
Okay.
So,
well,
What's
hey,
wrong with a
listen. If
washer?
you
It's very
hold on.
pragmatic.
If you ever do,
I'm
no,
insulted here. I get
no. There
cooking
are
ware
young
for
men
my
listening to
birthday
this podcast.
and for Christmas. I'm
There
just
are
saying, I
young
get
men.
cooking ware. Like, I enjoy pots and pans. I get excited. Here's a new knife. Ooh, that's a nice knife. I'm excited about the knife.
Yeah, but that's a passion that you have, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: different people are going to get ramped up by different things. Look, I was looking to get, and I don't know what you mean by proficiency, Jeff. So I was looking, and I had two techs that were doing really well. A third tech who had the capabilities, but wasn't. He was getting to a certain point and then stopping, and money was not a driver for him.
right.
Tools were not a driver for him, but he loved the outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I said, hey, man, let's put a goal together. And if you hit the goal, I'll give you a day off paid, give you a long weekend so you can go hunting or fishing, whatever you want to do. What do you think? And literally in 1 month, he was up with the other two guys. Because there's this thing called ROE. It's return on effort. If they don't see a return on the effort, they're not going to do it. Nobody will.
No, for sure.
So it's getting to understand the people. And that's the thing that we've got to stop doing. We've got to stop thinking of people as production, and we've got to start seeing human beings.
And so when we talked about, this is an interesting conversation here when we talk about, and we seem to jump all over it right away or jump past it, was, okay, you got a tech that's coming to you to leave. Now you're going to hire him. We never talk about the reason why we're faced with that so much in this industry, why that person is leaving. Like, I always feel like whenever I listen to the industry experts and insiders and all this kind of stuff go on and on about people that are leaving, we always talk about, how do we get the next one? How do we, entice that person to not leave? Because I got X amount of hours in training and tooling, and I hornswoggled him into getting this, scope in his toolbox, but really he uses it for me all day long. Like, why do we have to? When are we going to start looking at the issues as to why they're leaving?
Take it home and play with it.
So, you want your tech taking tooling home?
Yes, it's his lab scope. As long as he stays where, by the way, the word is vested, and he will be fully vested after 12 months. And that lab scope will be his. But in the meantime, it is absolutely his lab scope. I'm letting him treat it as as his lab scope. I've got a tech who takes a sucker home. He's got audio equipment. He does like DJing on the weekends and stuff like that. He's got audio equipment. Guess what he does? He plays with the lab scope, hooking it up to the audio equipment to tune it, to rebuild it. Like, he's into that stuff. He geeks out on that kind of thing. He's into tools. I'm just saying, like, Rick, I understand the whole outdoors thing, but I'm a very simple person. I like things simple.
I think, but my point with that was,
I wouldn't hire a non-tool geek. I want tool geeks working for me.
If I want to fix it the most efficient, simplest way possible, right? And I think getting back to what my point is, like, yes, so that tooling is great for that guy. At the end of the day, what we all need is money in order to get off on what we want to get off on, right? Whether it's like, if you want to buy a bunch of expensive chef knives and totally geek out in your kitchen, if I want to go and buy, a new Ranger bass boat and upgrade I want to put $10,000 worth of electronics on it so that I can actually find more fish in the weekends that I'm fishing. I do that with money. I don't do that with, shop equipment. I don't do that with, he pays me a little less than the competition, but look at all these great tools that I have that are in the shop.
If you're into tools. But hold on. I'm going to throw Rick's thing right back at you. What if you walked up to your wife and instead of buying her a $500 piece of jewelry, you just handed her $500 and say, get yourself something nice for her birthday? Like, there's no thought put behind it. Like,
Jeff's not married. He doesn't know that would end up.
Well, I get it, but like that,
divorce, he doesn't get that.
There's something to the effort and the time to get to know the person and say, hey, what is it that I know you would want and is important to you? And it just for a few of my guys, it happens to be tools. They like tools. And that's one guy, he could care less. I haven't got him anything, but he's like, he could care less if I handed him a lab scope. If it was a $6,000 lab scope, he'd be like, "Oh, this is nice."
So how do you compensate him then, because he's different from the other two, or do you not bother because he's not a tool geek like the other two?
Yeah, he's a freak, and we make fun of him the entire day.
Huh? God, I hope he doesn't get poached by one of your competitors then.
No chance. You kidding me? He tells me every day,
yeah,
I'll never leave this shop, and if I do, it's because I'm leaving the industry. Yeah. I'm like, okay.
I mean, and that there's so many different ways we can do this. I know, he
wants a welder, by the way. That's what he wants.
Yeah,
he doesn't care about the lab scope. He wants a welder.
Years ago, I heard, and I've never been, so I can't confirm, that in Europe, it's much more that when they start out in the industry or the trade over there, that it's the shop's responsibility, even basic hand tools. And I can't confirm that because I've never been, but I have heard more than one person tell me that, oh yeah, like over in the UK, like you don't have a basic tool set. Like, you literally walk in and there's a, go lift the bonnet over on that Jag there, and then there's a set of tools, and it's how they want all the high-end Euro dealers to go, right? Where everything is uniform and the tools are all there. Like, I know that's already being implemented on the high-end stuff, because again, going back to that, everything being uniform from one dealer, whether it's in Anchorage or Alabama, right? They want it to appear the same. So I don't know. The idea that I think these kids now, man, like, they don't geek out on tools the way the previous generation seemed to. I work with, kids that are much younger than myself by 10 years and closer to 20 years. And I can remember when I was their age, it all had to be a certain brand, and it all had to be, and now they want to spend as little as possible on tools because they want a house, they want a car. Like, I'd still drive junk, and I've always driven junk because by the time I paid for my tools, I couldn't make a car payment. So we'd always laugh when we'd have these young apprentices come in to the industry and work in the dealership, work in the shop, and they were making a car payment at 21. And then he'd be coming around, he'd be borrowing your tools, and we're like, sorry, sucker. Like, see my old turd box out back? That's why I have the tools, is because, I ain't driving your car. Can I go drive your car around the parking lot for an hour while you borrow my tool? Like, that's the kind of stuff that I've seen the industry change in its perception, because I don't geek out on it. I really don't, man. I do not geek out. I geek out on proficiency being aptitude, the ability to fix something. I get turned on by that. But I don't, like, if I'm looking at Paul Danner fix something, I don't notice the brand of tool that he's using. Like I'm just glued to what Paul Danner's doing, right? Or Mario, or Brandon or Matthew Skundrich, or anything. Like I don't care what I'm just looking at the tech that's going on, being done, the proficiency that he's exhibiting when he's fixing that repair. I don't care what he does it with. I'm not, I don't ooh and ah and glitch and look at the Pico versus that stuff puts me to sleep, honestly. Like, that it's all part of getting to the end result, which is getting the car fixed in an efficient manner. But I don't geek out about that anymore. Guys with big shiny toolboxes and all, like, you're compensating, dude, for something, honestly. Or I look at that and it's sad because it's like, he might have all
you can
that.
buy a toolbox with 17-inch rims.
He's probably got a huge toolbox and he fishes out of a dinghy. That's how I
don't know what that is.
A dinghy? Well, a kayak. Or let's make it worse, David, and say he fishes from shore because he doesn't have a boat. Right?
I don't have a boat either.
Yeah. Well, it's not for everyone. Like,
there you go.
But I think that's the one key thing I've seen difference is it's getting harder for the new people into the industry, I've found, to get them to invest in the tooling to become a good tech.
Well, that's Rick's argument. He's saying you're not going to invest in the tooling as an employee. The shop's going to provide it all for you. We want your brain. We want your work ethic. We want your personality.
But
that's what we're hiring.
But not
your ability to buy your own tools.
But my production, if it relies on the shop's tooling and that tooling has holes, how does that reflect my production? Like, I've worked at a shop where we used to smash wheel bearings in because they wouldn't buy a bearing press, like a bearing buddy. Like I've countless things. We don't have a welder that works. So how do you do an exhaust manifold job? I'm not making this stuff up. Like, this is the truth, right? And then when you say to them, and I know that, well, that's an owner issue, that's not a tech issue, but hear me out with this, right? If you're now judging the production of what it took him to do that job, and there's holes in the tooling that you provide your tech, see how the numbers then get still twisted.
Yeah. What's the happy medium to that there, Rick? Because you're supplying all the tools, there's holes in the tooling. The technician, I've had that situation come up. The technician walks up and says, I need this $700 tool. And you're like, you really can't figure out a way to do this job without the $700 tool. And they're like, no. And maybe you do need the $700 tool, but sometimes
but
you don't
see,
need the $700.
I can find a workaround, but then it's going to take longer. And then does that affect my production? Because at the end of the day, my proficiency stayed the same. I'm accentuating the piece to help you guys. The proficiency stays the same in the sense that I got the car fixed. I got the repair done. The customer's happy. But the production took a nosedive because we didn't have that tool. I found a workaround. I did it last week. I did a Ram, rear wheel bearings in a 5500 Ram. We didn't have the seal driver. It took me an hour to go through the shop and find something, fab it up that I could drive that seal in, right? So we didn't have it. Could I have gotten it? Yeah, 3 days from now. Like, that doesn't work. It's sitting there tying up a bay, and it needs to get done. That hour, does that come off my production? Like, at the end of the month, when we look at his production or her production, does it come off because he spent that hour? It's not Rick's fault. As an example, Rick, I'm not picking on you, that he didn't have that tool because no one else in the shop did, right? First time for us. But how does that? So the whole tooling thing and the production thing, that's just dangling carrots, boys. Like, talk turkey what you're going to pay me, and I'll find your workarounds. I'll fix your stuff, man. But the harder, more problem solving you want, the more money goes in. It's just like a machine, boys. You want the really complex stuff solved, you got to pay for it. You get what you pay for. We used to say that. I lived and died by that in a dealership. I was that jerk. Because if there was no time on the ticket, there was no worky done by the techie. It's, you get what you pay for. And people hated that. But I could be that guy that, like when everyone else had given up on it, I could fix it. But you were going to make it worth my while. And you weren't going to talk to me about production, and you weren't going to talk, because we're going to talk about aptitude. We're going to talk about competency, and we're going to talk about proficiency. We're not going to talk about production or performance bonuses. Fly away with that nonsense. Let's flip the script and change the culture in the trade, in the industry, to stop thinking about them as they are just a number on a spreadsheet, and that what they turned for the shop was what we based their pay on. Forget that nonsense. Forget it. He has got a base, or she has got a base set of qualifications and a base set of tools. They're worth $32 an hour to start. If you can't make the money to pay them for that, 8 hours a day, that's the management problem. And that's the business problem. It's not the tech's problem, right? You get the work done, you get the tooling done, you have all the other logistics in place, the work will get done.
So let me ask you a question though.
Sure.
Because you're a unicorn, right? You're the exception, not the rule.
In household.
How is a shop owner supposed to handle someone who isn't coming in and being productive, who isn't coming in, we're paying them really well, and they're not producing like they should be, right? You're paid for 40 hours for that week, and you're paid this really great salary, and you come in and you turn 18 hours and you say, nah, it's because that job was really tough.
Yeah, but again, if the tech is always on his phone, or he takes lots of cigarette breaks, or lunch is lunch clocking in and out is just a suggestion. He's gone for an hour and a half. Like I've worked with guys like that, right? And they didn't turn a whole lot of hours, but they were not hourly.
That's Lucas's point, though,
right?
I think that's a larger percentage of the technicians out there. How much of the quote unquote problem in the industry with technicians, how much is that self-inflicted?
Well, I think
you can place lots of blame on the shop owners. Don't get me wrong.
I think this is unfortunately
on that either.
Boys, I think this is what you got to pick from. I hate to say it. Right, the new gen.
That's our point, though. Like a lot of these guys are coming in wanting to get paid for their potential, not their production.
Right.
Hey, I'm going to be good. Okay, great. And the guy that is being stolen, the example that Rick gave earlier, that shop that he was advising on, I guarantee you he overstated his abilities to that other shop that they're willing to pay him $1 bajillion plus this huge sign-on bonus to jump ship. They're desperate. But the minute that things level off, and all of a sudden that guy's not meeting certain production numbers because he overstated his abilities, that guy is gone, and he will go back to the shop. Look, I heard this, a very prominent coach, it wasn't you, Rick, but a very prominent coach said, everybody's worried about the technician shortage. Don't worry. The minute the economy turns down and these dealerships can't fill the bays up, they're going to start cutting guys left and right. And you're going to have a pick of whoever you want, because the only person they're going to be keeping at these dealerships is the absolute, complete, and total irreplaceable guys.
Do you remember when
that's only 1 out of 26. The other 25, gone.
Do you remember our last podcast when we talked about that? And the guys that left the industry? They left the dealers. Right? They didn't. It's not like when the guys out of the dealer, when they leave, a lot of them don't. Like I'm a unicorn for more reasons than not. A lot of guys, when they leave the dealer, they don't go to an independent. I mean, some do, and they're great techs, but a lot, when they reach that kind of upper echelon, and there's a management or an owner switch or something like that, they may jump brands. They may but a lot of them, they get out of the industry. Because it's a lot of it for the dealer, right? If you're looked after, a lot of them up here, at least my reality, you're at the top of the pay scale in a dealer. So if that goes away, or all of a sudden enough's enough, you've had it, you don't go and look for a different brand to work on. You don't go and work for, let's go find Billy Bob's Tire Barn and look, he had an ad run last week. You might go do something else. Good friend of mine, Tim, a tech named Tim, is out. He is a GM certified master tech. He's out of the industry. He's had enough. He's gone. Right. The last I mentioned, the guys that went to the Goodyear plant around here, they're gone. They out. They don't want no more of it. So yes, you can. Your trainer or whatever, your coach that tells you when the dealerships do this, I'm not waving that dealership flag, but man, that's some pipe dream stuff going on there when he says that that's going to be that he's going to flood the aftermarket. And let me tell you, when he does flood the aftermarket, should it happen, with what you're going to get, you're going to get.
He's basing it off of 2007, 2008 when there was a downturn.
Yeah, it's different.
Because that's what happened.
Well, that I went through that downturn 2007, 2008. It left me jaded, and I can tell you the next generation that's coming up.
Can't tell.
Jeff,
I can't tell.
I hide it well. In 2020 and 2021, and post COVID, the new air quotes norm. These guys are not. The guys are not going to be what you used to have, right? Like, you got to remember, I'm a guy that I've come in and I'm paid hourly, and if I come in and there's no work, you'll see me start to itch, and it's like, okay, how do I get out of here? I could be wetting a line right now. And so it's not just like we're all addicted to fishing, but there are people that literally, like, we manage to, find a way without the money. So if the work is there, we're there. But if the work's not there, it hurts our optimism to be there when there is no work. So that's why a lot of guys quit the dealers, because they get the boredom. I want to jump in.
Sure. I've been listening for a while. Yeah, that's all right. So dealers are much better in our country for recruiting technicians, or recruiting people that are interested in technicians. Being a technician, they put them through some training, and the training is usually pretty decent. And then what happens is they stick them in a quick lube bay, and they keep them there for 3 years. And then the guys quit the industry because they've had such a negative, experience with the dealership, and they figure that's it. But I'm telling you that there are independents that run their shops better than dealers in our country.
Let me tell you how it comes up here in Canada. We have, in Ontario at least, where I am, we have incentives from the government to hire on apprentices. So actually, they'll subsidize like 40 to 60% of their wages to hire an apprentice in the automotive power trade right now. That's how much of a... So what do they do with that? They hire that kid and do exactly like the dealer does. They put him at a tire machine, or they put him on a lube rack. So now, instead of not only making enough money off your door rate to cover his wages all day long, you get 60% more to put in your pocket for subsidy for the government. And did you create through your culture of your business a better tech? Heck no. But you put that money in your pocket. So, it's at least the dealerships that I have been exposed to, and we see it in the industry all the time, at least they have a recruiting budget that says we need to go and get these kids out of high school, even if we're selling them all smoke and mirrors. But we need that body, and we go out and get that, and we recruit them, and we dangle and carrot, but we get them. Like the aftermarket, you guys dropped the ball so many times years ago on that. It's just like
I agree.
You literally thought you could throw a rock out in the street and hit a kid with a toolbox and a lunchbox, one in each hand, and he could come
farm
in and
kids, right?
And
that's what you said the last
podcast. And he
podcast, farm kids,
and he could work for you, and he could get the job done.
Lucas, I got a question for you. So I hired this apprentice, right?
Yeah.
He's finishing up school in August. He's done. Mm-hmm. He went through his year program or whatever, right? And I've got him doing tires. I've got him doing some very minor inspections or some portion of it. I've got him doing some oil changes. He helps the other technicians occasionally if they've got, hey, I need an extra set of hands, or I can, start tearing apart this wheel or whatever it happens to be. And then he moves my cars at the end of the day for me. So my fear, he's got to move the cars like that. Hey, I'm paying you to sometimes just watch, like just move my cars. Anyway, so my fear in letting him loose. So I want to ask you what you did with Bridget, because my fear in letting him loose on a brake job or gaskets or whatever is that I can't have him on customer pay work without knowing that job is going to be done properly. Not necessarily quickly. I understand. That's going to take 5 years before he gets fast enough to do that anywhere near book time. He's got to do it several times. I get that.
Sorry, something in my throat.
But he's got to practice. Like my idea right now is
there's a way to do it. right? And I'm telling you, it works perfectly. It works beautifully.
I'm sticking them on my loaners. That's what I'm doing. It's like, hey, do that gasket on that loaner. Because he can screw that up left and right, and the loaner will be down. Great, I've got 4 others.
So can I interject? Why don't you put him with your top diagnostic guy, if you have a top guy, or if you've got all, and have him shadow that guy? Because let's be real, that's the future, right?
No.
Well, you still got to do gaskets. Gaskets pay the bills.
You still got it wrong. You still got it wrong.
Well, that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking.
Okay, here's how this works, and here's how it's very, very effective. You take your most experienced technician, and your most experienced technician stands back and watches your apprentice do the work. No, don't do that. Do this. Here, let me show you how to do this.
Yes.
You're going to do it,
Yes.
but let me show you how to do this. Now, you want to take this loose. Now, he's got to be paid for it. And if you want to give
they'll
them
both
something,
be paid. So you're taking the technician, you're saying, hey, you're just going to shadow. You got to watch the entire process, make sure it doesn't break anything, make sure he's doing everything safely, make sure you give him the tips and tricks, and you're essentially just doubling up on the jobs.
Especially for the first 5 or 6 months that they're actually working on cars. With Bridget, that's what Eric did or Terry did, is explained. Okay, now you do this, now you do this, now you do this. Then they stopped explaining.
Yeah.
And began to watch.
That was my first 3 years. Was almost every day like
3 years?
Yeah. Because it was a different, my first 3 years in the industry.
Lucas, give me some hope here. Is this going to take me 3 years?
It's going to take 3 to 5 years.
Thank you, Lucas.
Now,
Thank you. David.
Hang on.
David, shut the
I got to pause this for just a minute. Hang on. I got to pause this. First of all, I want to make sure we get to hear what Rick was going to say, because Rick was getting ready to say something I really wanted to hear. Secondly,
dude, I'm not going to argue with you guys. You guys do your thing.
Secondly, there is a
we got you on
in my
to
office.
argue. That's the point. There's a versus in there. If there's no argument,
it's not a versus.
It's a false solo.
It's not a verse. It's not
listen.
a versus. I think, some of the stuff, Dave, you do is kind of wackadoodle, and that's okay. You do you, and I'll do me, and we're all happy.
You, boo-boo.
Right? Bottom line is, I think, we've got to stop looking for unicorns, and we've got to start growing.
Yes.
And the way we're going to do that is through shadowing.
Culture.
And what you do is you set it up so, and here's the thing, Jeff, I understand your whole thing about hours, but as an owner, I've got to sell something. Now, I want to make sure you understand, I throw the labor guide out. I don't believe in it. I charge a rate for a job. I talk to my technicians before we do it, and we make sure that we're in a good place.
Right.
Now, but I got to sell hours, and I'm going to measure your performance on the hours you produce, because that's the ruler I have.
Yep. And I never had a problem.
Okay.
I never had a problem with the hours of my production when I could quote the job, inspect the job, and do the job. It was always when somebody else took that away from me, and I wasn't gouging customers, but it was always, what was that line? I forget who said it a couple weeks ago. And there's no bad jobs, just jobs that are not quoted properly.
Correct.
That resonated with me to my soul. Because that's so many.
Hold on. That shop was under-equipped, and had they quote unquote quoted it properly, they were penalizing the customer for being under-equipped.
Okay.
I could not do that. I'm eating that flash because I should have had the tool, or I shouldn't have taken the job.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing. Now, let me talk to you about communication, because communication in a shop sucks.
It's terrible.
Right?
Terrible.
And what happens is, here's the typical thing. The tech, gets a job and it says Ford Mustang, no power. And the tech takes it for a ride, and he finds out that it's 5-speed and the clutch is slipping. So he goes back to the advisor and says, needs a clutch. So now the advisor writes up an estimate, sells the job, and then is pissed 5 hours later because he sold it for 5 hours and the tech's taking 7 to do it. Now, the reality is we're not talking to the techs.
Mm-hmm.
The tech should be coming to the advisor and saying, hey, man, I think it's going to take me 7 hours to do this job. And the other thing he should be looking up is you should be telling the advisor, every part that he needs to use, and the tech, if he doesn't know, should be, if he's never done the job, should be looking it up to see if there are any special tools that are needed. And here's why. I have a shop in Texas that I coach, and he was doing a Porsche, working on a Porsche engine. And it was a job they'd never done before, but nobody looked. He quoted the job at $1,100, figured he was going to make $600 profit until he found that he could take the job apart, but he needed a $900 tool to put it back together.
Sure. Yeah.
And I said, great, how many of these are you going to do? And he said, one. So he lost $300 on the job because we didn't communicate properly. Because if you had realized that you needed a tool, you would have been better off to say, I'm sorry, I don't do this work. Let me send you to somebody that does.
Yeah.
Right? The other thing is, there's a lot of, we talk about, hey, a TPS is a TPS is a TPS. And I'm going to tell you, there's no two jobs that are the same. I don't care if it's the same year, same make, same model. It's not driven the same way. It doesn't go through the same environmental situations.
Yep.
There is no such thing as the same job. So having that input from your technician and then being able to talk to them afterwards and say, hey, man, I'm quoting this out and it's coming out. I got about 5 hours in this thing. Can you help me understand why it's 7? And we talk it through. Now that's where the magic starts to happen. But there's not enough communication.
But Rick, some of that communication, you'd be talking like at least a couple hours in the just prepping the job, like the prepping the estimate, right?
No, it's not that. It's not really that bad. I can tell you that when I'm working with shops, we have one form that if they're using paper, we use that form and it does an amazing job for the shop and the tech. Because here's the thing. I'm all about helping shops get more profitable, reduce stress, and increase free time.
Mm-hmm.
But it is not just for the owner. It has to be for everybody on the team. There has to be a benefit for everybody on the team to step up and to improve, because you got to look at a shop as like an organism. You can't have one cell of an organism start to eat more and exercise and stuff. It'll make the organism grow a little bit, but then it stops because the other cells aren't, doing the same thing. We've got to get it so there's a culture, a condition where constant and never-ending improvement is part of this. And there's something on the other side of it beyond just that good feeling you get because you were able to fix a vehicle. And unfortunately, as technicians, sometimes that's all we walk away from. Is the fact that I fixed that car when nobody else could or 3 other shops couldn't. I lost my damn shirt on it. Look, you're talking to a guy back in hold on a second, I'm going to say the year, 86 or 87, I called Ford. I actually called OTC and was on the phone for 3 hours looking for EEC 3 scanners because I was sick and tired of not being able to get into the system. Spent $5,000 on the tools and fixed 4 cars. That's my ego writing that check. I should have just said, nope, see you later. Because it wasn't in my wheelhouse. I didn't have the tooling for it. So a big part of this is understanding, and we got to charge enough to pay right. We have to charge enough to tool up properly for the work we're going to do. We have to improve communication so we know what we're walking into. The days of figuring it out as we go along, that's another 1970s thought.
But every time I talk about, and I think even David and Lucas were hearing it at last week in Texas, was that everybody talks about better inspections and better, like I can tell you from the tech standpoint, again, where a lot of it is like that inspection is supposed to be done for free or, a compromise on time, that like you're not going to get a better inspection done or a more thorough inspection done without putting the value in that, right? Because at the end of the day, what you sell your customer is the competency of the people that work within your facility. Period. End of subject. If you've got a whole bunch of tools and a whole bunch of training and a whole bunch of people that can't fix anything or won't fix anything because of the attitude or the culture that's in place in that, you have nothing. You have zero, but you've got a very good image till the people get to peel back the layers and see that the onion inside is rotted.
You
right?
say that, but there are a lot of shops that have extremely poor reviews, spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on marketing, and they keep pulling in cars.
Sure they do.
And the attitude is there's always another car.
Yep.
And they
another
have
car, always
a terrible
another tech.
job. And on top of that, they're not selling their competency. They're the technicians, because their technicians are sometimes wholly incompetent. That technician will be allowed to break, smash, do whatever, as long as that number, that warranty rate, or whatever they see it as, that dollar amount that it's costing them to have them there, doesn't hit a certain threshold as a percentage of what they're able to produce. As long as it doesn't cross over that number, they don't care.
But that's not right, David.
It's not right. Absolutely, it's not right. But you know what? There's a flippin' franchise here in Kansas City, has 5 locations. And I guarantee you every single one of those stupid locations are doing twice as much revenue as I'm doing. And that's how they operate. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. And their attitude is there's always another car. They really mean sucker. But there's always another car.
But
always another car.
David, that's how the dealers have managed to survive, is because with every new car they sell, they generate a new customer, right? That's it. That's it in a nutshell, right? It's the same. I can show you that how the tire business drives the independent shop market up here, because God damn it, if I can put 4 tires on your Benz, hell yes, that customer wants to come back and have me give a whack of an attempt at their brakes. And then I may get into it and I may realize that I can't reset nothing after I do their brake job. But by God, we got in there and we didn't want to tell the customer no. So every time you sell anything in this industry, there is the potential that you generate another customer, whether it be a brand new car or a set of tires, right? So it doesn't. David, I feel exactly where you're coming from when you're talking about that 5 franchise. But this is why I've said for years in this industry, when we've been always about let's sing Kumbaya and pick the other person up, we've been needing to educate the customer about this is what happens here. Like, if I had a shop tomorrow, there'd be a wall of shame. And there wouldn't be one job that I ever turned out of it that would be hanging on that wall. But every other sketchy thing that I ever saw, there'd be a photo of it, and it'd be hanging on the wall and be saying, "Don't go here because of this." And people hate me for saying that. They think that's terrible. Oh, come on with the Kumbaya shit. It's been 60 years. I've been listening to that nonsense for 30 years in this industry.
I've got emails where I'm being blasted for calling out.
And it's bullshit.
Fellow shop owners.
It's bullshit.
Yeah, this is a fellow shop owner. We need to uplift the industry. Flip you. If this industry is in the state that it's in because of the people that preceded
because it won't police itself.
I wasn't in the industry 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Rick, I'm not including you. You're trying to make it better with the coaching thing, but I'm just saying these people that are in the industry trying to quote unquote uplift the industry and make it better, this, that, and the other. What in the hell have you been doing for the last 30 years? What? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Lining your pockets. That's the only thing you've been doing, is lining your pockets.
Or they've been surviving.
You've been manipulative and screwing your customers over and justifying it in your mind because you know what? You get an extra vacation and an extra house and an extra Lambo sitting outside. What do you care? What do you care?
And then I'm going to bring that young person that I just hired, and I'm going to have him every Friday afternoon. I'm going to have him wash it for me. And then the wife's going to come by with her car, and he's going to wash that too. And he's going to do that everything. And then I'm going to park the new boat that I bought in the frickin' front parking lot so that he can look at it. And then when he goes to get a raise, I'm going to tell him there ain't enough money. That's the reality of this industry. And if you think it's not, it is. It is.
No, I disagree. And we're okay to disagree. There are outliers that are like that, but it's not everybody. There are a lot of people that are honest. There's also a lot of people that are afraid. And I'm going to tell you that I look at financials that would honestly scare the pants off of most people. And these are guys that are tired of working for somebody else, and they think they're going to go work and make all this money because they see the money coming in, but they don't see what happens to it. And the
Yeah,
truth is,
very much so.
these guys don't know what the hell they're doing. They're afraid to ask for help. They're afraid to let anybody know they don't know what they're doing, and they suffer for years. And they take advantage of their staff and their vendors because that's all they have the backbone, right? You got to change your wishbone for a backbone, but that's all they can go after because they don't see a way to charge what is appropriate.
Yep.
Agreed.
I agree 110% because, you know, I was very much in the same boat, right? Very much in the same boat. And until I started working through that, we didn't overcome it. Right. And I think that's just it, is that we can sit here all night and we can talk for hours and hours and hours about how it's unfair how technicians have been treated, how it's unfair what technicians got, and it's unfair and not right, and this and that and the other. But the reality is, until we start talking about what we're going to do to change it, how are we going to do it differently? Because we can talk all night about what's wrong. But the reality is we've got to have a conversation about what's going to fix it.
Hold on. You're right. And I agree with Rick. I would say the majority of shops, because you listen to a lot of shop owners and they say, I got into this industry because I wanted to do it better. I thought I could do it better. I didn't want to be that shop screwing customers over and justifying it in my mind. I didn't want to be that shop, and I wanted to do better for my technicians. And you know what? Yeah, things got hard. And at some point, a lot of these shop owners are going to face the decision: either I'm going to do things right, no matter what, even if it's hard, even if it doesn't mean I get that second, third, fourth, 15th location, I'm going to do the right thing, no matter what. Or they sell out, and they'll justify it however they want to justify it in their minds. They'll sell out in some way, or all of a sudden, that phrase, that tactic, that manipulation that they saw as abhorrent a couple years ago, or when they opened that first shop, now it's okay. You know why? Because it'll pay the bills. I can now feed my family. Now I can pay my technicians better. Now I can build a better shop. Now I can take that vacation. Now I can open that second location. Now maybe I'm building churches in Guatemala. Whatever your justification is, but still at the end of the day, you sold out. So you need to make the decision, because Rick's right. Most of those shops are honest. They are, Jeff. They're absolutely honest. They're just trying to do better for themselves and trying to do better for the family, and they want to improve the industry. But at some point, they're going to be faced with that decision. And all I'm saying is, don't sell out.
Yep.
Sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I think that the biggest issue in the industry right now is the lack of people in it. Right? The qualified, competent people that you need. And I think so we can, and I love this conversation on this topic, it fires me up, but I mean, we have to realize that I only speak from the vantage of the tech, right? So I can tell you, I'll tell you blunt, honest, why you don't have people getting into it and what you don't. You can talk about, this and that and the other thing, but it's those P words, man. You're the next generation coming in. We don't work like that. We don't want to listen to it. And Rick, I'm not picking on you. I'm not trying to say, and I understand that it's a tool and it's but you have to change your mindset to like, you have to change your mindset to see. And I know it's part of how you come up with the numbers that you need to operate. I get it. I understand it, man. I understand it. But we have to change how we entice the people getting in and how we judge them and how we justify them. And you say, because like I've had jobs that went sideways, right? And I only got paid 6 hours and I had 10 hours into it. And I sulked and bitched about it, but I took my lumps and I went on, right? And I did that and I did that and I did that and I did that. And till eventually I got to the point where it's like, man, I'm a really good tech. Like I can solve some problems, man. But it always came down to when you're judging me, putting me in a column, talking about performance bonuses and wages and stuff, it always comes back to how many jobs went wrong. How many jobs was he off on his production? None of that matters.
Whoa. No. That is, listen, that's a two-pronged problem.
Okay.
And you can't just simply say, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. Okay? You can't do that because it's not the whole picture. And the reality is, so let's talk about how we do this in my shop. Okay. And Rick is the one who taught me how to do this 100%. When we go to evaluate a vehicle, now my technicians are paid for the evaluations. Okay. They're paid for the testing. They do a level 1 testing routine, and they come back and they either say, hey, I have found the problem, or I need to do additional testing, and here's what that looks like. Okay, cool. Whatever. What do you need? All right, we'll put it on there. Right? We'll call a client and let them know. Right? That's what we do. Or the technician says, hey, I need to do this repair. Okay. How long is it going to take you? I think it'll take this long. Okay. That's actually less than book time, or that's more than book time. Can you explain why? Okay. Well, it's really rusty. Cool. Come out here and look at it. Yep, absolutely. Rusted out. You said 3 hours. I think I'm going to put 5 hours on that because right?
Yep.
Let's make sure we cover this properly. Now, something goes wrong in the job. It is my responsibility to call the client. Now, if we make a mistake or we screw up, that's not the client's responsibility. That's on me, right? But I, as the shop owner, take that responsibility, not the technician. Okay? Because that's what I do. I take the responsibility for what happens in the shop. It's all mine, right? We might talk about it. We might work through it and figure out how to make sure it doesn't happen again. But that lost time, it's either going to be billed to the shop or it's going to be billed to the client, right? Mrs. Client, I'm sorry. We couldn't have foreseen this. This is clearly an issue. Here's what we've got. And this is what it means for you now.
Right.
Right. So you look, I think you're looking at this from the experiences you've had, and Rick's sitting here trying to tell you there's a better way to do this.
Agreed.
Right? Because there is.
But the majority, and we've talked about this before, the majority of the techs work for owners that aren't taking coaching from Rick, or somebody like Rick, or working in a shop like you and Dave would run. Guys, let's be real. And you've said that yourself.
Absolutely.
The majority are not going to,
Well, don't use me as an example. Rick is absolutely right. It's wackadoodle stuff that I do. But
listen,
it is absolutely. I 100% agree with him.
But Jeff, hang on though. Hang on. Right? What
they need to quit
those
shops. They need
that's
to
what
quit
I was going to say. That's what we're all trying to say.
Frickin' men.
We said this at the very beginning with this technician series. The minute the technicians have all the power, that was your objection to what I said, Jeff. The technicians have all the power. The minute they say no, and they walk out the door, they grab their toolbox and say, I'm going down the street, or I'm going to find a better shop today. Now they have a roadmap now. Maybe they didn't have that before. But you know what? Hand these stupid podcasts out and say, listen to these two idiots and do it the way, find a shop that does it the way Lucas does.
And that's been why I've been sharing the heck out of this, right? This is why
Here's the thing, Jeff, I'm going to give you a real quick story, okay?
Okay, Rick.
I'm 18 years old, 19 years old. Actually, I must have been 19. It was right before I got married. And I go to work for a shop in Cambridge as their lead rebuilder for transmissions. And about a week after I started, I noticed that the owner was carrying a handgun. And I'm like, man, what kind of neighborhood am I in? And it took me about 3 months to figure out why he had the handgun. And here I am, 19 years old, lead rebuilder. And I want to date myself now. We got 2 big Fords in there, and they got the C6 transmissions in them, and one's shifting too hard, one's shifting too soft. He literally drops the 2 transmissions down side by side, The R&R guys wash them down and paint them. And then he comes over to me and says, I want you to, mark these up as a rebuild.
And then switch them.
And then he swapped them over. And I said, no way. I will not do that. He says, you're kidding me. I said, nope, you can fire me right now. I'm not doing it. And so he did. And he had one of the rebuilders put the stuff on it, and they put them in the car, and I quit that day. Because I will not work. Remember reputation? If I have a really good, if I care about my reputation, I am not going to work for one of those people. One of the things I learned, and I wish I learned it earlier in life. My wife is amazing. We just actually celebrated our anniversary on Tuesday. And she taught me a long time ago that we teach people how to treat us. And honestly, we got to stop complaining. Technicians got to stop complaining about what they don't want, and they got to start finding places that give it to them, and stop letting these scumbag operators stay in business by doing it.
Yep, I agree.
And that's the truth, because there's always going to be, as long as we tolerate that kind of behavior and that kind of treatment, those kind of people will always be in our industry. But the moment we stand up and say, no, I deserve better than this.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the ASOG podcast. If you'd like to catch these episodes early, you can do so by becoming a patron. Just go to asog.site and click on the Become a Patron Now button. Becoming a patron helps support the show, gets you several perks, and is tax deductible. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and on YouTube so you never miss any of our upcoming episodes. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, but again, no complaints, shoot me an email. My email address is david@asog.site. That's david@asog.site. Until next time.